You should have taken the bet when you had the chance. The voice came from the back of the room. It belonged to Vincent Castellano. He was 81 years old. He had built one of the largest private equity firms in New York, and then he had built another one, and then he had built a third one, and then he had stopped counting. He sat at the head of a long oak table in a private club on Park Avenue. 12 men sat around the table. 11 of them wore the same gray tie because they had all gone to the same school. They had been told the 12th tie would be different. None of them had been told why. 2 servers stood at the side of the room. One was a young man named Pavel. He was 26. He had worked in the club for 3 years. He was already thinking about law school. The other was a young woman named Inez Carter. She was 23. She had worked in the club for 9 months. She had been told when she was hired that she was not smart enough for the math test the servers had to take. She had taken it anyway. She had scored higher than anyone who had ever taken it. Nobody had ever asked her about the score. Inez stood very still when Vincent spoke. She did not know what the bet was about. She had been told the room was having a private lunch. She had been told her job was to pour water and clear plates. She had not been told that water and plates were about to become a math problem worth more money than her grandmother had made in 12 years of cleaning houses. If you have ever been told you are not enough, you already know how this feels. Stay with me. The moment that changes everything is almost here. Vincent spoke again. He told the 11 men that he was tired of their sons. He told them the sons were soft. He told them the sons had been raised on trust funds and ski trips, and they had never once shown him they could spot a real number in a real room. He told them he was going to give them a test. He told them the test was simple. He told them the test was a napkin. He said a real investor could read a napkin the way a good cook could read a market. He said the napkin would be carried in by the only person in the room who had not been invited, and that person was the one who would set the real test. He pointed at Inez without looking at her. He told her to come to the table. He told her to carry the napkins. Inez did not move for a long moment. Then she picked up the small silver tray. She walked to the table. She set a folded napkin in front of each of the 11 men. She set the 12th in front of Vincent. She did not unfold them. She did not explain them. She stood at the end of the table with the empty tray in her hand. She looked at Vincent. She waited. Vincent asked her very softly what she saw. Inez said she saw 12 napkins. Vincent said no. He said, what did the napkins mean? He said a man who could read meaning in a napkin could read a market. He said a man who could read a market could run his money. Inez said she did not understand the question. Vincent said that was the right answer to the wrong question. He started to laugh. Then he stopped laughing. He opened the napkin in front of him. He showed the room that inside the napkin was a single sheet of paper folded twice. The paper had a number on it. The number was $240 million. The number was the value of a small company Vincent was about to sell. He told the 11 men the first one of them to guess the actual sale price within 10% would get a share of the deal. He told them a server would carry the answer back to the room in 10 minutes. He told them the server was the only person in the room who knew how to read a napkin. He pointed to Inez again. He told her in a voice meant to wound that she could have a try. He told her a black waitress with a tray and a borrowed apron should not be afraid of a napkin. He told her if she wanted, she could guess the number 2. He told her if she guessed right, he would give her $10,000 and a one-way ticket back to wherever she came from. The room laughed the way rich rooms laugh when they have been told to laugh. Pavel looked at the floor. Inez looked at Vincent. She did not blink. If you have ever been the only one in the room nobody believes in, you know what this moment costs. Stay with me. The math is about to begin. The napkin sat in Inez's hand. She did not unfold it. She did not look at the paper yet. She knew the paper said 240 million. She knew the napkin had been folded twice. She knew the napkin was white. She knew the napkin was from a stack the club kept under the sideboard, a stack her supervisor had told her cost $11 a dozen. She knew the silver tray the napkins had been carried on had come from a New York maker named Whitfield, whose trays sold for $4,000 if you bought them new, and for $9,000 if you waited. She knew the room smelled like the same cigars THR. Of the 11 men smoked every Tuesday, because the club had to keep a small closet for the cigars, and the closet was near the kitchen. She knew the small black box on the side table held a single brand of lighter, because the club only kept one lighter for every customer. She knew all of this the way a person knows anything they have spent 10 years paying attention to. She did not say any of it yet. She stood very still. Vincent told her again, a little louder, that she could either try the bet now or walk back to the kitchen and serve coffee. He told her the choice was hers. He told her with a smile that did not reach his eyes that her guess did not matter anyway because the bet was between gentlemen. Inez said very quietly that she would take the bet. She said it in a voice that did not shake. She said it in a voice that had been practiced on subway platforms and in front of bathroom mirrors since she was 9 years old. She unfolded the napkin. She looked at the paper inside. She did not write anything down. She stood there for what felt like a year and what was actually 9 seconds. Then she said very calmly that the sale price of the company would be $294 million. She said it would close at 4:12 in the afternoon on a Friday in October. She said the buyer would be a man named Robert Kahn from a firm in Chicago. She said the deal would be announced in a press release that used the word strategic exactly 9 times. She said the buyers would pay a small premium because the company held 3 patents the seller had not yet filed in Europe. She said the seller did not know about the patents yet, because the patents were filed under a name nobody had heard of yet, but the patents were real because she had helped file them when she was 19 years old. The room went very quiet. Some doors close because the room is not ready for what walks in. Stay with me. The truth is about to land. Vincent asked her to repeat the number. Inez did not hesitate. She said $294 million. She said the closing would be on a Friday. She said the buyer was Robert Kahn. She said the patents were in her name, but she had signed them over to the company for $1 because she had been 19 and she had not known what $1 could buy. One of the 11 men raised his hand. He said he had worked in private equity for 30 years and he had never seen a server guess a sale price with that kind of detail. He asked Inez, very politely, what school she had gone to. Inez said she had not gone to school. She said very softly that she had been educated at a small library in Harlem where her mother worked as a cleaner. She said she had taught herself math on a borrowed laptop because the library had a Wi-Fi signal that did not ask for a name. She said her mother had died in 2019. She said her mother had taught her the only thing she ever needed to know, which was how to count the days something cost. Vincent did not speak. He looked at the napkin in his hand. He folded it back into the shape it had been in when it came into the room. He set it on the side of his plate. He did not open the inner paper again. Pavel walked over to Inez. He asked if she was okay. Inez told him she was okay. She told him she was going to need a few minutes. He offered her water. She asked for tea. He went to get it. Vincent asked the 11 men if any of them wanted to try the bet. None of them spoke. The napkin sat in his hand. The room was very quiet. Even the cigars had stopped smelling of smoke. Vincent asked Inez to stay where she was. He asked Pavel to clear the table. He asked the 11 men to leave. He told them the deal was off. He told them none of them could read a napkin. He told them a waitress had just read a napkin better than anyone he had ever hired. The 11 men stood up. They left the room in silence. Pavel cleared the table. Inez stood by the wall. She did not sit. She did not drink the tea. She waited. Stay with me. The hardest part of the story is coming, the part nobody sees. When the room was empty, Vincent stood up. He walked around the long oak table. He walked until he was standing in front of Inez. He stood very close. He told her in a voice that had lost all of its laughter that he had been wrong. He told her the napkin was not a test. He told her the napkin was a mirror. He told her he had been looking at the wrong napkin for 40 years. He asked her what he could do. Inez did not hesitate. She told him very softly that she could use the $10,000. She told him she could use the ticket out of town even more. She told him she did not want the money for herself. She told him she wanted it for the library in Harlem where her mother had worked. She told him the library had a leak in the roof, and the leak had been there for 9 years. She told him the leak had destroyed 3,000 books the year before, including a first edition of a math book her mother had used to teach her the multiplication tables when she was 5. She told him the library had been trying to raise the money for a new roof. She told him the library had raised $700 in 3 years. She told him the librarian had cried when she had told her that. She told him, in a voice that did not cry, that she wanted the roof fixed before the next snow. Vincent asked her how much the roof would cost. Inez told him she did not know the exact number. She told him she had done the math. She told him, from what she could read on the library's last tax filing, the roof would cost around $140,000. She told him the rest could go to the math books. She told him math books were the only kind of book a child could unwrap and find a future inside. Vincent asked her if she would come back tomorrow. Inez told him she would come back. She told him she would come back for the napkin test only. She told him she would not come back to pour water. She told him she had been offered a single chance at a desk in the math department of a state university, and she had turned it down because she could not afford the train ride to her interview. She told him she would take the train if he paid for the ticket. Vincent asked her for her phone number. She did not have one. She told him she had lost her phone in the subway in 2021 and she had never replaced it. She told him the library had a number. She told him the librarian was a woman named Mrs. Whitfield, who had known Vincent's grandfather when he was a small boy. Vincent stood very still when she said the name. He told her he had not heard that name in 40 years. If you have ever lost everything and still kept showing up, you already know who Inez is. Stay with me. The door to the library is about to open. When Inez left the club that night, she walked east on 56th Street. She walked past the small flower shop where the owner gave her a free rose every Tuesday. She walked past the bakery where she had once stolen a single loaf of bread because she had been 15 and she had not eaten in 3 days. She walked past the corner of 5th Avenue where the doorman remembered her name because she had once delivered a letter to his daughter when the daughter was sick. She did not stop. She did not look back. She walked to the train. She took the 6 Uptown. She rode the train to 125th Street. She walked 3 blocks to the small library. She opened the back door with the key the librarian had given her when her mother died. She walked to the small office in the back. She sat down in the chair her mother had used for 15 years. She did not turn on the light. She sat in the dark and she waited for morning. In the morning, the rain came down hard. The leak in the roof was louder than usual. 3 buckets sat on the floor. One of them had begun to overflow onto the math shelf. A first edition of a book her mother had used was already ruined. The cover had come off. The pages were soaked. The multiplication tables on page 4 were barely visible. The librarian came in at 8. She was a small woman in her 60s. Her name was Mrs. Whitfield. She was the daughter of Vincent's grandfather's housekeeper. She had been running the library for 22 years. She had known Inez since she was 5. She had known her mother since she was 20. She had buried the mother with her own hands. She had given the daughter the key that night. She asked Inez if she was okay. Inez told her yes. She told her what had happened at the club. She told her about Vincent. She told her about the napkin. She told her about the $10,000. Mrs. Whitfield did not speak for a long moment. She put the kettle on. She made 2 cups of tea. She set one in front of Inez. She asked if Inez had eaten. Inez shook her head. Mrs. Whitfield opened the small jar of peanut butter she kept for the children who came in after school. She set it on the table with 2 pieces of bread. Inez ate both pieces slowly. Then the door opened. A young man walked in. He was carrying a single envelope. He handed it to Mrs. Whitfield. He did not wait. He walked back out into the rain. Mrs. Whitfield opened the envelope. Inside was a check for $140,000. Inside was a single sheet of paper folded twice. Inside the paper were 4 words written by Vincent's own hand. The 4 words said the check was for the roof. The 4 words said the roof was for Inez. The 4 words said the math was for the girl. The 4 words said the napkin was for the mother. Inez did not read the letter. Mrs. Whitfield read it out loud twice, slowly, the way she read the math book when she was teaching a child. She set it down. She put her hand on Inez's shoulder. She said very softly that the rain had stopped. Inez looked out the window. The rain had not stopped. The rain was still coming down. The rain had been oming down for 9 years. The rain had not stopped yet. Mrs. Whitfield was already smiling. Some doors close for a reason. Some doors open because a single person decided to stay. Stay with me. The library is about to change. When the check cleared, Mrs. Whitfield did not throw a party. She did not put a sign on the door. She called the man who had been trying to fix the roof for 9 years. His name was Joseph. He had been a roofer for 40 years. He had quoted her the job 3 times. He had been told every time that the money was not there yet. He came back. He brought 3 of his sons. He brought 4 ladders. He brought a single sign that said Harley's Roofing, and he put it in front of the library for the first time. The work began on Monday. It went on for 16 days. The leak stopped on the 17th day. Mrs. Whitfield walked inside at 6 in the morning. She stood in the math section. She stood very still. She did not hear the bucket. She did not hear the drip. She heard only the small clock that had been there for 22 years. She called Inez. She told her the roof was done. She told her the math books were safe. Inez came down at 6:30. She walked past the math shelf. She touched the first edition her mother had used. She looked at it for a long time. She set it back on the shelf. She set it exactly where her mother had set it for 15 years. Then she looked at Mrs. Whitfield. She told her very quietly that her mother had come back to the library for 16 minutes that morning. She told her mother had touched the book. She told her mother had smiled. She told her in a voice that did not cry that the math was safe. Mrs. Whitfield did not ask how Inez knew these things. She nodded once. She made 2 cups of tea. Stay with me. The room is about to change again. The napkin did not stop working. 2 weeks later, a letter arrived at the club. It was addressed to Vincent. It had no return address. It was written in a small, careful hand on a single sheet of paper. It said that the library's roof was now standing. It said the first edition had been preserved. It said the math books had been moved to a new shelf by a window that faced east. It said a single girl had walked into the library that morning and asked to borrow a book on probability. It said the girl had been 8 years old. It said the girl was the same age Inez had been when her mother had taught her the multiplication tables. It said the girl would need a teacher. The letter did not ask for money. The letter did not ask for a job. The letter asked for a single name. The name was for the kind of teacher who could teach a child in a library on a chair that had once belonged to a woman who had counted the days something cost. The letter was signed Inez Carter. The date was October 14, 2024. The handwriting was the same handwriting that had been used to write 3,000 math solutions on napkins and receipts and subway schedules during the years when no one had offered her a desk. The handwriting was the same handwriting that Vincent had not seen in 40 years. The handwriting was the same handwriting his grandfather had taught every child who worked in his house, including a small kitchen helper named Catherine, who had once cleaned the silver trays in a small club in 1958. Vincent read the letter twice. He set it down. He stood up. He walked to the window. He looked out at the small park across the street. He stood there for a long time. He did not speak. When he finally spoke, he spoke to no one in the room. He said very softly that he had been mistaken about napkins. He said he had been mistaken about servers. He said he had been mistaken about black women and black girls and black math and black libraries and black roofs and black names. He walked back to his desk. He picked up the phone. He dialed a number he had dialed once before in 1962 when his grandfather had died. The number was for a small foundation that had been set up to fund the building of a single school for girls in Harlem. The school had not yet been built. The money had been promised but never paid. Vincent asked the woman on the phone if the money had been paid. The woman told him no. Vincent told her he wanted to write a check. He asked her how much the school would cost. The woman told him $4 million. Vincent told her he wanted to write a check for $10 million. The woman was quiet for a moment. She asked him if he was sure. Vincent asked her to read him the name of the school. The woman read it. He asked her to read it again. The name was the Catherine Carter School for Girls in Harlem. Vincent did not speak for a long time. He looked at the small photograph he kept on his desk. The photograph was of his grandfather. The grandfather had been standing in front of the small club in 1958. He had been holding the hand of a small black girl who had been cleaning the silver. The girl had been named Catherine. Vincent asked the woman on the phone if the school had been named for a girl. The woman told him yes. The woman told him the little girl had been his grandfather's goddaughter. The woman told him the little girl had grown up to be the mother of a single daughter. The woman told him the daughter was named Inez. Vincent set the phone down. He walked back to the window. He looked out at the park. He stood there for a long time. He did not speak. He did not write the check yet. He had not yet been ready to write it. He had to wait until the morning. He had to wait until he could write it in the same handwriting his grandfather had used on the day he had held the hand of the small girl. If you have ever felt like a math problem nobody wanted to solve, you already know why this matters. Stay with me. The next part is the part that stays with you. In the morning, Vincent wrote the check. He folded it the way a napkin should be folded. He set it on a silver tray. He asked Pavel to carry it to the library in Harlem. He asked Pavel to walk slowly. He asked Pavel to set it on the small desk in the back. He asked Pavel not to open the envelope. He asked Pavel not to say a word. Then Pavel did something Vincent did not ask. Pavel walked east on 56th Street. He walked past the small flower shop. He walked past the bakery. He walked past the corner of 5th Avenue. He walked to the train. He took the 6 Uptown. He rode the train to 125th Street. He walked 3 blocks to the small library. He opened the back door with the key Mrs. Whitfield had given him that morning because Mrs. Whitfield had known he was coming. He walked to the small office. He set the silver tray on the desk. He did not open the envelope. He did not say a word. He walked out. He gave the key back to Mrs. Whitfield. Mrs. Whitfield took the tray. She walked into the back. She set it in front of Inez. She did not open the envelope. She asked Inez if she wanted to open it. Inez reached out. She held the envelope for a long time. She thought about her mother. She thought about the leak in the roof. She thought about the first edition. She thought about the small girl who had borrowed a book on probability. She thought about the napkin she had unfolded 3 weeks earlier in a room of 11 men, and one old man who had not known what he was looking at. She opened the envelope. She took out the check. She looked at the number. She looked at the name of the school. She looked at the name of the old man at the bottom. She held the check for a long time. She held it the way she had held the napkin. She held it the way her mother had held the photograph of a man she had loved for 30 years. She held it the way Inez had held the napkin when she was 9 and her mother had first taught her how to fold one. Mrs. Whitfield asked if Inez was okay. Inez told her she was okay. She told her the roof was fixed. She told her the school would be built. She told her the napkin had done what napkins sometimes do, which was to hold a single truth between 2 folds and wait for someone to unfold it. Mrs. Whitfield nodded. She made 2 cups of tea. She gave Inez the jar of peanut butter. She set the bread on the table. Inez did not eat. She held the check in her hand. She looked out the window. The rain had not come back. Stay with me, the story is almost done. The napkin has not yet finished working. 3 months later, the school was built. It stood 3 blocks from the library. It had a single sign at the front. The sign said the Catherine Carter School for Girls in Harlem. The sign had been paid for by a check Vincent had written in the same handwriting his grandfather had used when he had held the small girl's hand. The first girl to walk into the school was named Maya. She had been 8 years old when she had borrowed the book on probability from the library. She was now 9. She still had the book. She had read it 3 times. She had taught her little sister the multiplication tables. She had taught her mother how to read a bus schedule. She had taught her grandmother how to read a bill from the electric company. When she walked through the front door of the school, she looked at the woman standing by the small front desk. The woman was Inez. The woman was wearing the same apron she had worn at the club. The apron was not borrowed. The apron was hers. The apron had been the only thing she had owned that had been given to her with respect. She had kept it folded in a small bag under her bed for 9 months. She had taken it out that morning. She had put it on without ironing it. She had walked to work. Inez looked at Maya. She asked Maya if she had brought the book. Maya held it up. It was the book on probability. It had been read 3 times. It had been read once more. It had been loved. Inez smiled. She told Maya the math was waiting. She told Maya the desk was hers. She told Maya the chair was hers. She told Maya the napkin was hers. She told Maya the napkin had been folded twice. She told Maya to unfold it whenever she needed to remember where she came from. Maya set the book on the desk. She sat in the chair. She set the napkin beside the book. She opened it. She looked at the math table inside. She did not cry. She did not speak. She looked at Inez. She asked very softly who had taught her mother those tables. Inez told her very softly that her mother had taught her. She told her that her mother had learned them at a small library in Harlem. She told her that the librarian was named Mrs. Whitfield. She told her that Mrs. Whitfield had been the daughter of the housekeeper who had held Vincent's grandfather's hand when she was a girl. She told her that the math had not stopped. She told her the math had been in the family for 4 generations. She told her the math had only ever needed a napkin, a window, and a teacher. Maya nodded once. She opened the book. She looked at the first page. She looked at Inez. She said very softly that the first page was about counting the days something cost. She smiled. She turned the page. She began. Vincent read about this 3 weeks later in the back pages of the Times. He sat in his small apartment on the Upper West Side. He read the article twice. He set it down. He did not call Inez. He did not write her a letter. He had written the check. The check had done the work. He walked to the window. He looked out at the park. He looked at the small statue of his grandfather in the corner near the bench. He looked at it for a long time. He had not been to the statue in years. He had not been to the park in years. He had not been to the library in years. He had not been to the club in 12 days. He had been sitting in his apartment by himself for the first time in 40 years since the morning his grandfather had died. He sat down. He did not pick up the phone. He did not call a lawyer. He did not call a banker. He picked up a single napkin from the small silver tray the club had given him when he had retired. He unfolded it. He looked at the number inside. He folded it again. He set it on the small table by the window. He looked at it for a long time. He did not speak. Then the nurse came in. She asked him if he was okay. He told her yes. He told her the napkin had done its job. He told her the napkin had held a single truth for 40 years. He told her very softly that the truth had finally unfolded. She asked him what he wanted for lunch. He told her the usual. She smiled. She set the bread on the table. She set the napkin beside it. She did not unfold it. She left the room. Vincent sat by the window. He looked at the napkin. He did not touch it. He did not need to. The napkin had done what it was always meant to do, which was to hold a single truth between two folds and wait for the right hands to unfold it. Some truths only arrive when the room finally goes quiet. Stay with me. We are almost at the end. On the last day of that winter, Inez walked out of the school at 6 in the evening. She did not lock the door yet. She stood in front of the building and looked up at the sky. The sky had been gray for 9 days. It had been gray for 9 years. It was beginning to be clear. She walked 3 blocks to the library. She walked into the small office. She looked at the small desk. She looked at the math shelf. She looked at the new window that faced east. She saw Maya sitting in the corner with the book open, reading the same page she had read 3 times. Inez did not speak. She did not interrupt. She set 2 cups of tea on the table. She walked out. She walked west. She walked past the bakery. She walked past the flower shop. She walked to the train. She took the 6 downtown. She rode the train to 14th Street. She walked 3 blocks to the small rooming house where she had lived for 2 years. She opened the door. She did not turn on the light. She took off her apron. She set it on the small chair by the bed. She set her keys on the table. She sat down in the only chair in the room. She looked at the small photograph of her mother on the wall. She did not speak. She did not cry. She sat in the quiet the way a person sits in a quiet after a long walk home from the place they were never supposed to be. She sat there for a long time. She thought about the napkin. She thought about the bet. She thought about the 11 men who had laughed. She thought about the 11 men who had walked out of the room in silence. She thought about Vincent. She thought about the rain that had stopped. She thought about the roof that had been fixed. She thought about the school that had been built. She thought about Maya. She thought about the multiplication tables on page 4. She thought about her mother. Then she whispered very softly, in the voice she had used when she was 9 years old, in the voice her mother had used when she was teaching her to count the days something cost, in the voice that no anger in it anywhere, only patience, only grace, only the quiet stubbornness of a single black girl who had been told she was not enough and had decided to become more. She whispered that the math was safe. She whispered that the napkin had been unfolded. She whispered that the roof was holding. She whispered that the girl was reading. She did not whisper a single word for the 11 men. She did not whisper a single word for the man who had laughed the loudest. She had whispered enough for 1 lifetime. She closed her eyes. She breathed once. She put her head on her hand. She sat in the chair. She did not move. She did not need to move. She had done the math. She had always done the math. If this story stayed with you to the quietest line, you already know what a napkin is for. Hit like so a small thing keeps getting carried. Subscribe so the next one finds you first. We tell the stories of the people the world tried to fold twice and forget. Stay with me. Until next time. What would you have done if you had been the only one in the room nobody believed in?